Hi there, it's Susan from SG Development Solutions. Today I'd like to talk to you about motivation and the motivation equation. Now, the motivation equation is not more money equals more motivated people. Contrary to the belief that many people hold, and perhaps people that you work with, money is not actually a motivator. Now, we've known this for years and years. Frederick Herzberg published his theory of motivation in 1959, and in that he talked about hygiene factors and motivators. And he found that money actually doesn't motivate us. Yet, it's an enduring discussion in many organisations and a source of frustration between many managers and their team members. Now, if you've read my blog, The Secret to Self-Motivation, you'll already know that motivation is internal. And so it's something that is very difficult for us to control and influence in anyone other than ourselves. It's primarily how we think and feel about a situation we find ourselves in and the impact that then has on our behaviour. So you can see where the challenge lies for managers and leaders. Now, I'd like to share with you today a different way to think about motivation and how to motivate others so that you never need to have that money conversation again. My key point today is that people are not motivated by money, they're motivated by the recognition of the effort that they invest in doing something. Now, that doesn't mean paying them more for that effort, but it means demonstrating that you recognise the effort they've invested and showing what that effort actually means to you, to your customers, to other stakeholders. Now, Dan Ariely talked about research that he'd done into motivation, and you can see his talk on TED Talks. In his research, he was asking a group of volunteers to carry out a very simple task, which was building model figures and doing it for money. And basically what he did was he was asking them to build as many figures as they felt they wanted to based on different amounts of money. Now, what he found was that people were far more motivated to keep building figures if they got recognition for the figures that they were building as opposed to the money, because the money actually was only $3 at most anyway, and the more they built, the less money they got. So it didn't make sense that they were motivated by the money. And what he noticed was in his two groups something different was happening. He'd split the volunteers into two groups, and in one group, when they were building the figures, the researcher who was in the room with them would take each of the completed figures, look at them and put them to one side and say that will go into our display. In the other group of volunteers, the researcher took the completed model, dismantled it and then handed it back to the volunteer to rebuild. And what they found was in that second group, people were far less motivated to continue building. So it wasn't to do with the money, it was to do with what did they feel was going to happen with their completed figure at the end, the recognition of the effort that they put in. So what Dan's conclusion was that if people feel good about the work they do and feel recognised for the effort that they're putting in, they're far more motivated to continue doing that particular activity. So the best thing you can do as a leader or a manager is to acknowledge the effort that people in your team are putting into the job they do. So how can you do that? Acknowledge their effort. You can recognise the outputs and the results. They may not always be exactly what you're looking for, but if someone's invested the time and effort, then it's acknowledging that, recognising it, and then taking the time to spend some time with them, taking the time to engage in conversation with them, engaging them in a conversation about what they're doing, why they're doing it, how they feel about doing it. People love that kind of attention. One of the best accolades that you can receive is for somebody to ask you to share what you do with someone else. That's really saying you're good at what you do, you have the skills and knowledge, I'd like you to pass it on to someone else in a form of mentoring. So one of the best things you can do as a leader is to actually identify the people who are putting in the effort and delivering the results, and then ask them to share that with others. So in essence, as a leader or a manager, making people feel good about what they do is the key to motivation. If people feel valued, if they feel their contribution has been recognised, if they feel noticed by others, those are the things that are really going to motivate. And money becomes far less of an issue. You don't need to have that conversation anymore. So, as a leader, as a manager, acknowledge your team's efforts, engage them in conversation, recognise the results that they're contributing, and ask them to share those skills and knowledge with others. Those are the kind of things that will really help to motivate. So the motivation equation is really more recognition equals more motivated people. Thanks and bye for now.